First and foremost, let's speak tonight with the President's Special Assistant on Media and Publicity, Mr. Garba, who joins us from Kano. Thank you so much, Mr. Shehu, for joining us tonight. And let's begin this conversation in this manner about our relations with the United States and the outcome of that election. Viewers have heard what the President said. We saw Democratic President-elect, candidate President-elect Joe Biden emerge. Now, for Nigeria and the United States, under President-elect Biden, how does this come to the president or the Buhari administration?
Well, let me first of all say to you that Nigeria and the United States have enjoyed very, very good relationships. And it was even more so under President Trump, who just lost the election. If you recall very well, this country had procured weapons to fight terror and internal security from United States and various other world, capitals. For some reasons, before President Buhari came to office, the United States government and several other nations of the world stopped the sale of weapons to Nigeria. To the credit of Mr. Trump, he agreed, in fact, called President Buhari at a short notice and said, Mr. Buhari, you want to buy a dozen Super Tucanos. These are aircraft most suited for fighting terror, the kind that we face in the Northeast. I give you 2 months. This is how much you will pay, we will give you. It's a big relief to us, and we will soon start receiving, hopefully in the coming year, some of the aircraft will be delivered to Nigeria. So we have had good relationships with Mr. Trump, but our hope is that this relationship will even be better with President Biden.
It's interesting you mentioned the issue of the 12 Super Tucano aircraft fighter jets that President Trump promised Nigeria. Indeed, when the president was also following up on that, President Buhari asked Mr. Trump about how soon we can get some of this, especially if we could get some of them this year. The year is running to an end. He did mention at the time that we could get about 2 of them. Have we gotten those 2?
No, we haven't got them. But during COVID-19, COVID-19 has been disruptive of manufacturing, not only of people's health, but entire economies of the world. We believe that quite a number will be delivered within 2021.
So, aside the Tucano aircraft, I know that there are also part of that conversation is also some military hardware. How much of that assistance has Nigeria received, and what are those other things left to be received on the side of Nigeria?
Well, when our administration came into office in 2015, it wasn't only the procurements of weapons and aircraft that was blocked. So many windows and doors to access American assistance, to access, to trade America with America in so many fields. Windows had been closed, but with improved relationships with the coming of the new administration, with particular reference to the coming of President Muhammadu Buhari onto the scene, with the much respect that he brought to the nation as a whole. A lot of these blockages, they were removed, and for this country, we have had an open season, if you will allow me to use that term, and that access is allowed to Nigeria, not only for military weapons, but aircraft and matters of trade. Much of this has been eased.
Well, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Shehu, does the Buhari government feel some kind of hostilities between under the Trump presidency concerning some of the relationships which some analysts have said things may have gone sour? For example, there are policies about twice now about issues of visa and some levels and layers of visa issuance on the side of the United States. Also, some recent relationship which a lot of people are worried about is that of the Director General role at the WTO. Our candidate is being opposed by the United States. Also, we saw what happened in the issue of the AFDB. What can you tell us if, for those who think that things are perhaps are gone sour and perhaps we're getting some hostilities under the Trump presidency?
Well, let me begin by addressing the issue you raised of WTO. And to say that I don't think this was unexpected, given the way Mr. Trump ran the U.S. foreign relations. For him, it's America first in all situations. And I'm sure that record keepers would document how low relationship between their country and China had gone to. It shouldn't surprise anybody that wherever China goes, America under Trump would most unlikely, I'm just speculating on this, will most unlikely not go that way. And so therefore, I don't think that what happened with the initial request, the denial of endorsement by America in the first instance, was to do with either the competence of Madam Ngozi Iweala or the excellent relationship that had always existed between Nigeria and the United States. I think that we are caught in between some unpleasant relationships between big powers playing in the economy, but we are hoping that with time, all of these things will be resolved. The other issue you mentioned is that you thought something was wrong when United States has stopped permanent residency visas for some Nigerians, in a bundle, in a big bundle that also included several other nations of the world. Well, it was to punish Nigerians for a number of things that had gone wrong and corrections that they had demanded in some of our affairs which were not forthcoming. And the Nigerian administration under President Muhammadu Buhari made no pretenses about things that had gone wrong, including, of course, maybe the issue of the supply of information on wanted criminals that Nigeria ought to have been supplying, to international police organizations and so on. So President Buhari said, so you have a point there. And he set up an interministerial committee that went to work. And as I speak to you, all of the protests, all the issues raised by the US government that led to the stoppage of the residency visa, permanent residency visas, have been resolved. But it is up to the Americans to decide when they will open the visas to Nigerians. But I don't have any difficulty in that regard.
Yeah, because, Mr. Shehu, quickly on that note, a lot of Nigerians, even Americans, has raised objection on that stance, which out of those countries, Sudan and some other countries were listed. Some people had criticized Nigeria being on that list. Are you worried going forward, and perhaps linked to the issue of the implication of some of the deals and some of the agreements the Nigerian government has had under Donald Trump, and what the implication will be when Mr. Biden assumes office as America's next president?
Let me bluntly tell you that President Muhammadu Buhari inherited an unwanted situation. The key issue there actually is having to do with long-term contracts that have been issued to foreigners to produce Nigerian passports. And by that meant that some foreign company also was custodian to an enormous amount of information, personal information of Nigerians that they had withheld in the case of missing passports from the international police organizations. And Americans didn't take that lightly. And I want to assure you that President Muhammadu Buhari took that seriously. And I know that as far as sometime last year, he had written officially to the Ministry of Interior to ensure that the production of Nigerian passports is domesticated. What that means is that no foreigner will also be keeping information about you or me that is private and confidential.
So, Mr. Shehu, has the president, on behalf of Madam Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, because of what we saw over the last past days. Has he been able to reach out to the United States on the possibility of Madam Okonjo-Iweala getting the WTO job?
President Buhari had been talking to all world leaders. In fact, at some point, Madam Ngozi Iweala had a list that she thought President Buhari also needed to talk to. Some to thank them for being so strong in their support, and some maybe to be encouraged to firm up their support for her candidacy. And we are seeing the results of this. In the last few days, did President Buhari speak to outgoing President of the United States of America? I've not been briefed about that, but I tell you that given the determination of President Muhammadu Buhari to ensure that the first African woman clinches that post, no stones will be left unturned. And I'm sure that Americans can be talked to, and the Nigerian government would press the right buttons in the hope that the results that we need would be obtained.
Let me get your reaction. I mean, I saw the reaction of the president congratulating Mr. Biden, and perhaps which takes us to some of the things that are happening locally here in Nigeria. A federal high court in Abuja has granted the request of the central bank to freeze the accounts of 19 individuals and a public affairs company linked to the EndSARS protest. Is the president privy to that, and is that the approach of the federal government on the incident or the situation surrounding the agitation of the EndSARS protesters?
Well, you know yourself that this country has only one president and has only one constitution. And President Muhammadu Buhari is responsible for his government. The buck stops on his table. The issue is, where a country governed by law, there is a constitution that says clearly under section 33 defines the rights of citizens to freely protest in a peaceful way. But where a peaceful protest turns into riot and violence and looting, there is a law and order duty, a function to be performed. Under the Nigerian government, everyone is witness to the massive looting of public and private property, particularly in Lagos and the Calabar and the Plateau and Taraba and some of these states, even the FCT. Now, the laws of the country must be allowed to decide, to rule on wrongdoing on the part of just anybody. I'm not particular about any celebrity or promoter of this country has been harmed enormously, and the people should be prepared to account for what they did. And I think that it will be of interest to 200 million Nigerians if some of those leading politicians who had promoted the EndSARS to the time when it was seized and taken over by looters, to come out with the same force as they did support, to also denounce the degeneracy that set in. We are watching, some of them have succeeded nothing so far. But this country has to be saved from looters. And that the interest of the country is about politics. PDP, they should come out and denounce these things unequivocally.
So the president is aware on the freezing of those young Nigerians' accounts?
I'm not specifically availed of that information, but I want to tell you that the president will not run from responsibility. It is his government. The buck stops on his table.
But what is the reaction of the government also to the lawsuit partly instituted partly with the aim of shutting down Twitter in Nigeria? Is the federal government favorably disposed to such an action?
No, it was an action by an independent group. If a government was interested in pursuing that line, Attorney General of the Federation would have filed. But let me also tell you, and I know you are very patriotic Nigeria. I don't know what you are seeing happening in Europe, in European countries and UK, dealing with technology companies such as Google. The enormous fines that they have been paid into the treasuries of countries of the European Union for breaches and infringements that we are witnessing every day in this country. So if you ask me, do you want my personal opinion? I'm not entitled to it. I will not say, but the Attorney General is in the best position to address your question.
Because the question will be whether or not how that will affect the issue of free speech in the country, which is enshrined in the fundamental human rights of the average Nigerian.
I assure you that free speech is not in any danger in this country. President Buhari has shown the best respect for freedom of the press and of expression in the country. But are people free to use platforms to promote hate speech and promote lies? And I must say that we have seen responsibility on the part of Facebook. Facebook had acted diligently in many of those instances where fake news and falsehood were peddled. And then they pulled them down. So if anybody concerned in Nigeria feels that the interest of our country has been harmed, I think they are entitled to the type of action that we're seeing.
All right, stay with us for a moment, Mr. Shehu, because there was a meeting of Southwest leaders and they've been asking the president and the federal government to take some decisive action. I will be asking you on your final thoughts on the program in about a moment when we get back from this break. But up next on the program, the nation is trying to find its way back on track after the devastation of the aftermath of the EndSARS protests in most parts of the country. But what are the way forward? We'll find out after now, and we get some other perspectives, legal perspective from a senior lawyer. After now, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's get back to the conversation. You just heard there a soundbite from the governor of Oyo State as part of the conversation they had with the Southwest leaders, some ministers of the Federal Republic and some traditional rulers. And that will lead us to our final moment with the President Buhari's Special Assistant on Media and Publicity, Garba, Shehu, who has been speaking with us from Kano. Thank you so much, Mr. Shehu. Let me get your reaction. Part of the conversation there today in Lagos is the resolution of those leaders is for the concentration of the confab reports of the past, especially the areas related to security, economy, equal treatment of citizens all over the country. With this sort of call, would the president be considering this advice at a very dire moment as this?
The president is open to anything that would make the country function better, that would reinforce existing unity and provide for good governance, peace, safety, and security in the country. This country is governed by a governance structure that has an executive and a parliament and the judiciary. And we have a parliament that is ready to look at all of the issues under the sun and to make amends to existing laws wherever it's necessary. I think that the issue of the 2014 conference report is if they like, let them go and submit it to the National Assembly. For the National Assembly, under our constitution, is the only institution that can propose changes to our laws. And the president would accept reasonable changes that are presented before him.
So the question will be, how soon will those, the acceptance will be, considering the fact that the nation needs to get back? We've seen some of the toughest times in our history within the last few weeks.
You know that the Senate and House of Reps committees on constitutional amendment have already been instituted and they are calling for memoranda. Serious people have started presenting memos to them. And I think anybody who is serious about any issue should take advantage of this window.
Well, that is the initiative of the parliament. Is it backed by an executive order or a request from the president? Those are two different things entirely. The National Assembly might be doing their own role. They are being paid to do that. But because of the dire situation the country is, and this is the reason why these leaders are meeting in all of these regions. So the question is, will the leader, the number one citizen of the country, take it upon himself based on the consideration and the report that have been tabled, for example, from the Southwest leaders, take up that responsibility to say, I want to champion the change that the people are yearning for?
The president has been championing the changes that Nigerians yearn for. You fully are yourself aware that the country's judiciary is truly financially independent now. State legislatures are truly independent. Local councils in the country have been liberated from the shackle hold of the state. So what are we talking about? This is a president who has done far more changes than people who advocated restructuring. So whatever they have, they are represented by senators and members of the House of Representatives. For God's sake, let's not continue to behave and think like military people. Constitution, democracy is slow, but it is the most accepted form of government all over the world. And go through the parliament. Why don't you want to go? If you don't trust the parliamentarians who are there, present yourself for election. Go there and do this by yourself. A lot of the people who are making the loudest noise on these matters are simply not electable in their constituencies. This is why they're using your platforms in order to just to create noise, unnecessary noise. The parliament is there to do the bidding of the nation, and they should use it.
Mr. Shehu, thank you so much for talking to us. That's the Senior Special Assistant of the President on Media and Publicity. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate it.